Camping is supposed to be a way to escape the noise of everyday life, but for some, a trip into the woods ended in a way no one expected. People vanished without a trace, leaving behind confusion, fear, and questions that remain unanswered. In this video, we'll look at 5 of the most disturbing disappearances of campers in America. Real cases where ordinary trips turned into chilling mysteries. It was July 5, 2025 in Potrero, California, a small rural town close to the U.S.-Mexico border. That morning, 38-year-old Gana Kovrizhnik, also known by her online name Angel Volnaya, sent her mother a troubling message. Attached was a photo of a handwritten letter and GPS coordinates pointing directly to Potrero. The letter instructed her mother to take control of her assets. It read like a farewell. After that, all communication from Gana stopped. A week later, on July 12th, her Jeep Grand Cherokee and camper trailer were found abandoned on Potrero Park Drive. She was nowhere to be found. By this point, her family was desperate for answers. The San Diego County Sheriff's Office was officially notified and an investigation began. Sergeant Jacob Klepak told reporters, "We believe she was touring the country and left her vehicle in Potrero, but she never came back. At first, police weren't sure if she had chosen to disappear on her own or if something harmful had happened. But what happened just before she vanished made the situation even more unsettling. On July 4th, only one day before her final message, Gana posted a series of strange videos online under her alias Angel Volnaya. In one, she read directly from the Bible. The caption said, "2 commandments, no one escape. Who kill will die forever." Her tone was serious as she warned viewers of punishment. "The rapture is coming. It is already on the earth. There is only a few years left. I'm a prophet," she said. In another video that same day, she filmed herself inside a church, showing items she called her supplies. They included bottled water, oil, batteries, a walkie-talkie, a solar panel, and even a gas mask. She told her audience, "I just left everything I have. Time is very close. Prepare all the churches, they should be ready. We are already at the last moment. This is only like 3 years and the Antichrist will sit on his throne." Her words suggested she was in a heightened apocalyptic state of mind. While her family and friends knew she was religious, they had no idea how far her beliefs had developed. Some friends admitted they hadn't spoken to her in months. Investigators later confirmed she lived in Hallandale Beach, Florida, and also had ties to Sunny Isles Beach, where a business was registered under her name. But in the weeks before her disappearance, her movements seemed erratic and guided mainly by her convictions. Police searched the area but found little. What remained was her abandoned Jeep and trailer, cryptic social media videos, and a haunting letter to her mother. Her physical description was shared in hopes of public help. She was 5'5", about 100 pounds, with blonde hair, blue eyes, and multiple tattoos on her arms and hands. Authorities also warned she might be wearing a wig. Another possibility was that she crossed into Mexico. Potrero is only a short drive from the Tecate border crossing in Baja California. With no evidence of a struggle, this theory became more likely. On August 27, 2025, NAMUS, the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, officially created a case file. Photos of her tattoos, her description, and the strange circumstances surrounding her disappearance were made public. Major outlets, including the Daily Mail, New York Post, and NBC San Diego, reported on the case. San Diego County Crime Stoppers even offered a $1,000 reward for information, but no credible leads came in. The timeline was chilling. On July 4th, she warned of the end of days. On July 5th, she sent GPS coordinates and a final letter to her mother, then vanished. On July 12th, her vehicle and trailer turned up abandoned. Since then, nothing. No confirmed sightings, no trace, and no explanation. Whether she left voluntarily, faced danger, or slipped across the border unnoticed, no one knows. Her case remains open, and to this day, the only clues are a Jeep, a trailer, a set of apocalyptic videos, and a final message to her mother that marked the beginning of her disappearance. It was June 9, 2013, in southern Washington state. 19-year-old Maureen Leanuhea Anu Kelly was camping with friends at Canyon Creek Campground in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. The area was rugged, surrounded by steep slopes, heavy brush, and tall trees. That evening, just before sunset, Anu told her friends she was going on what she called a spiritual quest. She removed her clothes, kept only a fanny pack with a knife, matches, and a compass, and walked barefoot into the forest. She said she would return by midnight, but she never came back. Anu's disappearance became one of the most unsettling mysteries in the Pacific Northwest, a case still unsolved today. Born on September 26, 1993, Anu grew up in Vancouver, Washington, raised by her single mother, Mapwana, alongside siblings, including half-sister Cherry Kapu. She was of Pacific Islander heritage and remembered as affectionate, easygoing, and carefree. She attended both Lewis and Clark High School and Hudson's Bay High School. Anu was artistic with dreams of becoming a singer and songwriter. She often shared ukulele and beatboxing videos on YouTube, including one posted just 2 days before she vanished. Her friend said she had been talking about a spiritual quest for some time, hoping to test herself in nature and find clarity. When friends invited her to camp near Mount St. Helens, she seemed excited. That same day, she even called Sherry to borrow camping gear. At first, the trip felt like a fun getaway, but later events would turn it into a troubling mystery. Canyon Creek Campground sits deep in Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, which covers over 1 million acres of glaciers, volcanic peaks, old-growth timber, and steep terrain stretching from Mount Rainier to the Columbia River. The campground itself has only 8 sites, surrounded by canyon walls and a fast creek. Getting there requires navigating narrow forest roads, and the isolation makes it both peaceful and dangerous. Sharon Ward, a volunteer with the Pacific Crest Search Dogs, later explained, "Where she entered the creek is amazingly steep. How she went down barefoot is a wonder, and how she came up is another wonder." At around 5 p.m., Anu stripped off her clothes, strapped on her fanny pack, and walked into the forest. Her friends didn't stop her, believing it was something she felt she had to do. The day had been sunny, with highs in the 70s, but as night fell, temperatures dropped into the 40s. With no moonlight, the forest was pitch dark. Anu had no flashlight, shoes, or clothing for warmth. When she didn't return by midnight, her friends called the Skamania County Sheriff's Office. At daylight on June 10th, search crews were deployed. The thick terrain and heavy clouds limited both ground and aerial efforts. Bare footprints were soon found, matching Anu's. They showed she had crossed Canyon Creek and climbed uphill toward Forest Service Road 54. But at the paved road, the tracks ended. Dogs were brought in, but her scent disappeared. For a week, volunteers combed the area. On June 15th, 75 people searched 4 square miles, but nothing was found. Investigators suggested Anu likely succumbed to the cold and exposure, possibly collapsing where she couldn't be seen. No signs of foul play or substances were found. Her family and friends, however, were not satisfied. Some worried she had been lost or injured, while others suggested she may not have wanted to be found. More than 10 years later, no belongings or remains have been discovered. In August 2024, human remains were found in the forest where Anu vanished. Authorities said they could belong to her or another missing person, Christopher Zitzowitz, who disappeared in 2013, but no confirmation has been made. To this day, Maureen Anu Kelly's fate remains unknown. She walked barefoot into the forest, promising to return. Her footprints ended on a paved road, and then she was gone. It was October 2nd, 2018, in the backcountry of Idaho. 76-year-old Connie Marie Johnson was working as a camp cook for Ritchie Outfitters. The camp was set up on Big Fog Mountain, near Big Rock in the town of Grangeville. The site was deep in the wilderness with no roads. Only horses or hiking could reach it. That morning, a group of hunters left Connie behind at the camp with her dog, Ace. The plan was simple. The hunters would return on October 5th, and Connie would be there when they got back. But when they returned, Connie and Ace were gone. Neither would be seen again. Connie wasn't a newcomer to the outdoors. She had spent decades living and working in wild places. She had worked as a U.S. Forest Service ranger at Moose Creek Ranger Station, mentored young people through the Selway Bitterroot Foundation, and led groups deep into the wilderness. Friends described her as calm, skilled, and completely at home in nature. As former colleague Chris Adkins explained, this isn't someone new to this. Connie spent 25 years of her life on foot alone in the wilderness. If anyone had the skills to survive, it was her. Physically, Connie was strong for her age. She stood 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighed 140 pounds, and had blonde hair with blue eyes. Even at 76 years old, she could work long days in rough conditions. In a past interview, Connie said she rarely felt fear in the wilderness. She trusted in her faith and experience, but admitted she learned to be careful. If you get hurt out here, nobody's going to help you. You're on your own. That's what made her disappearance so unsettling. On October 3rd, the hunters radioed Connie. The transmission came through faint and broken. They couldn't understand what she was saying. That would be the last time anyone ever heard her voice. When the hunters returned on October 5th, Connie and Ace were missing. They searched the area but found nothing. Eventually, they reported her disappearance. The search that followed was massive. Local teams with dogs combed the ground. Helicopters and U.S. Air Force aircraft used heat-sensing equipment. The Idaho National Guard and the Clearwater County Backcountry Helicopter Rescue Team joined in. Despite the effort, no clothing, gear, or tracks were found. After nearly 2 weeks, the search was suspended on October 16th. Then came a twist. 3 weeks later, Ace turned up, alive, at Moose Creek Ranger Station, about 15 miles from camp. Thin and dirty, but safe, he was taken in and cared for. Searchers hoped he might lead them back to Connie, but no trail could be followed. His survival only raised more questions. Had he stayed with Connie until something happened? Or had he wandered alone for weeks? Theories soon formed. Some believed Connie may have suffered an accident or sudden health problem. Others pointed to Idaho's unpredictable October weather, storms, cold, and dangerous conditions. Her family suspected something sudden, like a fall or medical emergency. A darker theory suggested she may have crossed paths with another person, though no evidence supported it. And then something even stranger happened. On October 5th, the very day hunters found Connie missing, another person disappeared in Idaho County. His name was Terrence Woods, a 27-year-old production assistant from Maryland. He was in Idaho with a British crew filming near Oro Grande. Witnesses said around 5:30 p.m., Terrence suddenly ran into the woods without warning. At first they thought he had fallen off a cliff, but when they looked, they saw him 15 feet down, still running, fast like nothing was wrong. Moments later, he was gone. Search teams found no trace of him either. Terrence had traveled the world before and was considered reliable. Just days earlier, he told his parents he was cutting his trip short to come home early, something unusual for him. His family believed he had been under stress but said he would never run off without reason. 2 disappearances, same day, same county. Authorities said the cases weren't connected, but many found the timing hard to ignore. Both Connie and Terrence vanished in rugged wilderness. Neither left behind any clues. Connie's disappearance left a lasting impact. Her family and friends created the Connie Saylor Johnson Wilderness Education Fund, continuing her work of teaching people about nature and survival. But the mystery remains. What happened to Connie Johnson on Big Fog Mountain? Was it an accident, sudden illness, or something more? And was her case somehow tied to the vanishing of Terrence Woods that same day? No one knows, and perhaps no one ever will. It was January 29, 1975 in Oregon. 19-year-old Charles Wesley McCullough, a photographer from Virginia, packed his gear and told a friend in Eugene that he was heading to Crater Lake National Park. His plan was to spend a few days taking winter photographs and return by February 1st. He told his friend that if he didn't make it back, he should be reported missing. Charles was not new to traveling. He had been hitchhiking around the country, visiting national parks to capture landscapes. Photography was his passion, and he carried quality equipment for the time, including a Nickermat camera, film, and camping supplies. He stayed in touch with his family and was considered responsible with his travel plans. That January, Crater Lake was covered in deep snow, ranging from 2 to 7 feet. Despite the dangerous conditions, Charles wanted to capture the park's harsh winter beauty. On January 30th, he was last seen at Diamond Lake Resort. A ranger later reported giving a ride to someone matching his description from Diamond Lake to the entrance of Crater Lake. If accurate, this ranger was the last known person to see him alive. Charles wore blue jeans, a blue hooded jacket, hiking boots with snow shields, and a patterned white turtleneck sweater. His orange Everest 288 frame pack held extra jeans, wool underwear bottoms, bandanas, a plastic sheet for shelter, a scout mess kit, silverware, a handmade knife, film, identification, keys, and an uncashed traveler's check. He also carried money and his camera. Strangely, these items were never found. When Charles did not return on February 1st, his friend reported him missing. Search efforts began but were limited by the deep snow, rough terrain, and severe weather. Despite planes, search parties, and posters, no trace of Charles was found. His father flew from Virginia to Oregon and even camped at Crater Lake during the summer, determined to find his son. But months passed with no results. Then in October 1976, more than 18 months later, 2 hikers from Texas got lost near Bybee Creek, a remote part of Crater Lake National Park. There they found a dirty, torn backpack. Inside was a Volkswagen key that matched Charles's car back in Virginia. Rangers searched the area and discovered skeletal remains scattered in the forest. Dental records confirmed they were Charles's, but the condition of the remains raised disturbing questions. His pants were found unbuttoned on a log with shin bones inside. His socks still held foot bones, but his boots were missing. The crown of his skull lay about 12 feet away, and his shirt and jacket were gone. His camera and money were never recovered. From the trailhead to where his body was found was about 12 miles. On the day he vanished, the area had received more than 7 feet of snow. Experts argued it would have been nearly impossible for someone without skis or snowshoes to reach that location. The missing belongings added more mystery. Some wondered if Charles had been robbed or harmed. Others suggested wild animals scattered his remains and gear. A ranger later called him the melting man of Crater Lake, though this was never confirmed in official reports. His father believed his son had been robbed and left in the wilderness, pointing to the missing camera and money. But author Michael C. Bouchard, who wrote a book on the case, rejected those theories. He argued that Charles likely died from exposure in the extreme cold. Hypothermia can cause confusion and even lead people to remove clothing, which might explain the open pants and missing boots. But the vanished valuables remain unexplained. In 1991, another man, Glenn Allen Mackey, disappeared near Bybee Creek. His remains were discovered there in 2006, deepening the sense of unease about that part of the park. The official report concluded Charles died from exposure, but the unanswered questions, his missing camera, money, and the distance he traveled in deep snow, still puzzle people. 50 years later, the disappearance of Charles McCullough remains one of the strangest cases tied to Crater Lake. His remains told only part of the story, while the rest continues to leave people wondering what truly happened in that frozen wilderness. It was September 25, 1981, in North Carolina. Thelma Pauline Melton, known as Polly, was hiking one of her favorite routes in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. She was 58 years old and had been walking these trails for nearly 2 decades. That afternoon, she was with 2 friends, Trula Gudger and Pauline Cannon. Her husband, Robert, who was much older and in poor health, stayed behind at their Airstream trailer. The day had been normal. Polly even prepared spaghetti sauce before the hike so dinner would be ready later. The plan was simple: a 4-mile walk on the Deep Creek Trail, then back to camp for the evening. Nothing about it seemed unusual, but by the end of the day, Polly was gone. The 3 women started down the trail laughing and talking. At one point, they teased Polly about a man at the nutrition center where she volunteered. She brushed it off, smiling. Nothing seemed wrong. Around 4 p.m., Polly suddenly sped up, moving almost at a power walk pace. One friend joked, "I wouldn't want to race you, Polly." She laughed but kept going. Within minutes, she was out of sight. When the others reached the campground at 4:30 p.m., Polly wasn't there. Robert hadn't seen her either. At first, they assumed she was nearby, but after an hour and a half with no sign of her, they alerted rangers at 6 p.m. Search efforts started right away. Over the next week, more than 150 people helped. 9 search dogs and helicopters were used, but no trace of Polly was ever found. A dog briefly alerted near a fallen tree, but her scent vanished after that. This trail wasn't remote or dangerous. Polly knew it well, and she had a strong fear of snakes, so she wasn't likely to leave the path. Investigators considered several ideas. Could she have been taken? At nearly 6 feet tall and weighing 180 pounds, it would have been difficult for anyone to move her unnoticed. Could it have been a medical emergency? She had high blood pressure and occasional nausea, but if she collapsed, searchers should have found her. An accident in the creek was also unlikely. It was shallow at the time. Polly's background added more questions. She was born in 1923, loved the outdoors, and had been married 3 times. By 1981, she lived part of the year in Florida with Robert and the rest in the Smokies with a close-knit campground group. She also volunteered daily at the local church nutrition center. On the day she vanished, she skipped her volunteer shift, which was unlike her. The day before, she made several calls from the center's phone, something she had never done in 4 years there. Investigators tried to trace them but failed. On top of that, she left behind her identification, money, and medication. All she had with her were her cigarettes. Her pastor later said she was struggling after her mother's death earlier that year. She had once taken Valium but stopped by 1981. Strangely, after she vanished, Robert's prescription bottle was missing. Some thought she might have left intentionally. That theory gained weight when 6 months later a check in her name was cashed in Birmingham, Alabama. But no one could prove it was her. Others thought robbery was possible. She wore jewelry, including a diamond watch and her wedding band, but no one saw or heard anything. Polly's case is often mentioned alongside other unsolved disappearances in the Smokies, like Dennis Martin in 1969 and Trenny Gibson in 1978. Her family never found closure. Her father refused to believe she was gone, and only after his death did her sister agree to declare her legally deceased in 1988. A service was held in 1991, but the National Park Service still lists her as missing. The last time her friends saw her, Polly turned, waved, and walked over the hill. She was never seen again.